I always enter their name to win the project that I make that week. So entered everybody's name. Thank you all for commenting and sharing. I appreciate all of you. I wish I could send you all a card, but the lucky winner for this one is Belinda Scardale. So I will send this to you, Belinda. Thank you so much for watching and commenting. And this card actually features stencils in the background, which we're going to talk about today. All right, so first of all, I want to point out the stencils in the catalog. Now, Stampin' Up! Calls stencils masks, but they're the same thing. That's just their name for them. So in the 2023-24 catalog, on page 136, you'll find two sets of stencils. We've got number 3, which is, so they're called decorative masks. I should call them masks. So there's the artistic mix, which is the one that we're going to use. I'm going to use the same stencil pack throughout the whole series for all 4 videos that I share, just because that's the one that I have. And some of these videos will be pre-recorded because I'll be away for a couple weeks. And then we have a new one in the catalog. It's called 4 Square, and it is number 4 up here. And it looks like it's got some fun patterns. So I will definitely be picking that one up a little bit later on. So those are the stencils or the masks. And let me share what the one that we're using looks like. So there are 4 stencils in a package. There is this one here. There's this one here. There's this one here. And then there's this one here. And this package, actually, these 2 are meant to layer. So you can see that they fit perfectly in there so that you can layer them. And that's something that we're going to talk about next week. And then these 2 are also meant to be layered to create a fun little plaid background. All right. So we're going to set these 3 aside. We're going to use this one today, and I've got a few other additional samples to share with you at the end. Okay, here's my package. Let's slide these in here, and we can go ahead and get started. All right. Okay, so before we get started, let's talk about some of the tools that you might find helpful when you're working with masks. So of course, you need your masks. You need some way of applying ink. So you could use a sponge, you could use finger daubers, you could use blending brushes, you can use a spritzer this is just a combination of ink refill and rubbing alcohol. You can use water as well. I prefer to use rubbing alcohol just because it dries a little faster. And then you can also use paste. We have 2 different pastes in the catalog. We've got a shimmer paste and just a regular paste. And if you choose to use pastes, then you'll need some palette knives as well. So those are different ways that you can apply the ink or whatever it is that you're applying over top of your mask. Those are some of the different ways that you can apply them. All right. Okay, let me set these aside and then we'll move on. Some other helpful tools to have on hand: Post-it notes, temporary adhesive, and or Post-it tape. So this I just picked up on Amazon. And you'll see, well, you can see here, I like to use it to hold my masks in place so they don't move around. But you can also use Post-it notes for that, or you could also use, like, if you've got like painter's tape, just some sort of removable tape. You could even use washi tape, because washi tape you tend to be able to remove washi tape quite easily, and it doesn't tear your paper. Okay, so those are some of the helpful tools that you'll have, and you'll see me throw in a couple other things throughout this series. I've got lots and lots to share, and by no means at the end of the 4 weeks, we will not have covered everything. There are just so many different things that you could do with stencils, but we're gonna cover some of them. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Just pull out my little pieces here. I'm going to start with a piece of wild wheat cardstock. And you know what? This is one of our new in colors. It was my least favorite in color. And I always force myself to use my least favorite colors first, because then I grow to love them. And I went through an entire package of wild wheat cardstock already. It's only been available to demonstrators for just over a month. It's crazy. I've come up with some fun color combinations, and you know what? Now that I've worked with it a little bit, I absolutely love it. All right, so we are going to just add a little bit of temporary adhesive to the back of our cardstock, and I'm going to stick this onto a scrap piece. And I like to do that because I don't want my cardstock to move. Now, you don't have to use temporary. You can use just a little bit of whatever roll-on adhesive you use. So if you use seal, just put a little bit of seal on there. It peels off nicely, it's fine. And it's just the back. All right, and then we're gonna take our stencil and I'm gonna position it over top, line it up so that it's straight. And then you can see that I've got some Post-it tape on here to hold my stencil in place. And I'm gonna bring in some wild wheat ink. So we're doing tone on tone because I wanna create just a subtle background. Excuse me. And what I want it to do is I want it to be a little bit darker in some areas and a little bit lighter in other areas. So I will add more layers of ink in some spots. So I'm going to tap off. This is my preferred way of adding ink to using our stencils, is with our blending brushes. I love our blending brushes. I don't know what I did before we had them, because oh my gosh, I use them so often. So now you can cover the entire piece of cardstock with your pattern, but I don't want it to be covered. I just want there to be a light pattern in some areas, and I want it to be a little bit darker in the center. So I'm going to go over the center area with a couple more layers of ink, and then just very lightly kind of around the edges. And then what I like to do before I remove my stencil is I will just lift this up carefully so that nothing moves. Okay. It's not quite the look that I want to achieve. So I'm just going to add a little bit more ink a little further out. So if you carefully lift it up, it gives you the flexibility of putting it back down. So I'm going to check it again. That is more like the look I want. So let's grab this. I'll bring it up a little closer so you can see how the pattern is a little bit more concentrated in the center and then just gradually gets lighter as we go out. That was the look that I wanted to achieve. Close that up and set it aside. We'll just pop this over here for now. Now I'm going to take my paper snips and I'm going to distress the edges. And if you have our old distressing tool, you can use that. I just like to use my snips. You just have to be careful because these scissors are very sharp. Do the last side. Okay, and then I want to take the corner of my cardstock and I'm going to kind of roll it over. I love distressing, Beth. I think it looks so, it just adds so much to a card and doesn't require a whole lot of effort or any fancy tools. All right, so there's our layer. So we've got our stenciling, we've got our distressing, and then we kind of curled up that little bit. All right, let's see who's watching. So good morning, Beth and Gail and Layla and Tracy. Good morning, good morning. I hope you guys are all having a great Friday. Okay, so I can't remember if I mentioned, but this piece is 3 3/4 by 5. And then I've got a piece of Mossy Meadow that measures 3 7/8. Good morning, Jean, by 5 1/8. And then our card base is going to be a piece of Mossy Meadow, or not Mossy Meadow, Wild Wheat. So we're gonna attach these 3 layers and then we'll move on to working on our focal point. I'm just gonna use a little bit of multi-purpose glue. And add that there so that we've got just a little bit of that mossy meadow poking through or peeking out from behind. Our color combination today is wild wheat, copper clay, and mossy meadow. I love this color combination. All right, so there's our base. Now we are going to do some die cutting. Now the bundle that I chose to work with today is the Cheerful Daisies bundle. This is such a fun bundle. You know, initially on my first pre-order, I ordered the DSP because I wanted to see what it looked like. I did not love the A side, the really busy floral pattern on the pattern paper, but I loved the B side. But then I ended up ordering the bundle and playing with both the bundle and the DSP, and I absolutely love both. Now the floral pattern, I do like it in smaller amounts, and there are ways to kind of tone it down. You can add layers of vellum, you know, use it in smaller pieces, combine it with more solid or less busy patterns to kind of tone it down. So there's lots of tips that you can use to still get lots of use out of a busy pattern paper. But the bundle, I have been having so much fun coming up with different ways to use this. So there, not only can you stamp, it's a 2-step stamp, but there's lots of different ways that you can layer the dies and even layer the dies and the stamps as well. So it's been super fun to play with. So today we're actually just going to use, well, on the outside, we're just going to use the dies, but for the inside, we're going to take a couple of the stamps as well. Okay, so I pull in my cardstock. We're gonna do lots of die cutting. Okay, so on here, I'm gonna share what we're doing and then I'll bring in my die cutting machine. So we're gonna use this leaf on that piece of mossy meadow. And then we're going to, on the copper clay, we're gonna do this fabulous, this cuts all 3 of these plus the leaves all in one pass. We're gonna do that. And this is gonna go on here. This is gonna go on here. So all the outline ones are gonna go on the mossy meadow. And then these detailed ones are gonna go on the copper clay. This one. Okay, so we'll set this aside, move all these over, and we'll bring in our Stampin' Cut and Emboss. Okay, and we'll see if we can strategically place this to do it all at once. Not sure all the cardstock will fit, but we'll give it a shot. All right, so we've got those ones, and then, oh, we won't be able to do it all in one pass. Okay, that's all right, we'll do it in 2. Add the top layer. I apologize for wobbling the table. I'll pop this out, grab that, and then we'll quickly run this one through. Okay, and we've got all of our pieces here. Let's bring back our magnet sheet so I can pop this on here so we don't lose any of these pieces. Okay, so we've got that one. I can never remember how these go on when I take off so many all at once. Okay, I might have to do this. Oh, there we go. Okay. And then we've got the detailed one. We'll pop the detailed one back on here. Okay, we'll figure this out later. This is taking too long. Just make sure that all of them are back on here. And this one you do want to be careful. This one is really fine and it tears quite easily. Okay, so we've got our leaf and we've got our larger floral cluster, and then we've got our detailed pieces. And we're going to bring back our scrap paper because we're going to do some ink blending. So on these detailed pieces, we're going to add a little bit of copper clay ink. And I'm going to use my blending brush. You can also use a finger dauber. And you can do it this way, or you can also do it this way. So I just want there to be a little bit of a distinction or a little bit more definition between this detailed bit and the layer it's going to sit on top of. So I'll go all the way around. And then this little piece. Okay, so that's all done. We can set this aside and close this up. And then we're going to bring all of our pieces back. Now I'm going to trim off this leaf image just because for this particular card, I don't want to use this. And I'll set that aside. I can use it on a different project. I'm going to bring in my paper piercing tool and kind of poke out these little pieces. You can also use your die brush for this as well. So all these little holes and these little pieces I'm just poking out. Has anybody used this die yet? Does anybody have it? I know a few of you are demonstrators. This is also the bundle that Laura and I are using for this month's Class to Go. Registration is still open until the 10th, and I'll share a little peek at 3 of the 6 cards that we'll be making in class in a bit as well. They're so pretty. We're making 6 different cards, and they're all stunning. Okay, so now we've got all of our pieces. Let me share how you can layer them. Okay, we're gonna start by layering this onto here. So the outline image layers behind this one nicely. So we've got just a little bit of that green in behind the flower. Position this on here and just tap it down. And then we're gonna add this layer on top, and this adds just a little bit more detail. So it gives a bit more depth and dimension to our flower. And I'll hold it up closer so you guys can see all of the layers. Good morning, Karen. What's the weather like in BC? Pop that on there. And then this guy on this one. do this. So this is just one of the ways that you can layer. You don't have to go to this extent for each one of these. There are so many different ways that you can do this. And they look great. Doesn't matter how you choose to do them. Okay, I always struggle with this guy. I think this goes like this. No, maybe not. This way. For some reason, this little one, there we go. All right, so look at that. Isn't that pretty? So fun. All right, so now we're gonna bring back our card base and we're going to add some dimensionals to the back of this, but I'm not gonna peel them off just yet because I wanna do a couple other things. So I'm gonna position this kind of where I want it. And then I'm gonna add this leaf or sprig or whatever it is that you wanna call this. This is gonna kind of go in behind here like that. So I'll just tap that down. And then what I wanna do is I wanna add a little bit of fiber in behind. And I'm all about using like little leftover bits and pieces. So I had this shorter length of the wild wheat ribbon, textured ribbon, and I had pulled it apart to use it for a different product. And so there's a few fibers left on this piece and I don't want them to go to waste. So I am just going to pull these out. So the way you can do this is right at the end. So it's going to start to fray here, but you take ribbon scissors work best, and you're going to cut right along the edge to remove this bit that holds all the fibers together, and then you can pull them apart. So that's what I'm doing here. And sometimes you can pull them out to the side, and sometimes it's easier to pull them through the top. So I'm just going to pull these last 4 fibers just to use them up. And now if I was starting a fresh piece, I would have done a longer piece. So these are just 4 shorter pieces. So we're gonna make do. So again, I'm gonna kind of position this and add a little bit of seal adhesive here and here because those are where I want my loops to be. And then I'm just gonna take each strand and create some of these you might not be able to see. This is really short, but like I said, I like to use what I have. I'll do another loop here, and we can have the end sticking out. That's completely fine as well. And then I want another loop here, and another one here. And I don't want 2 ends sticking out, so I'm just going to fold that one back up. And I can trim those. If they extend too far off, I can trim those off. Let's fold that back up. All right, I like that. All right, so now we can peel the backing off of this and stick our focal point on. And then we're gonna do a little bit of stamping. Pop that on there, just like that. Doesn't that look pretty? So pretty. Okay, now I'm gonna bring in my white layer for the inside of my card, another smaller white piece for my greeting, and I might as well do my envelope as well. Let's bring back our scrap piece of paper. Okay, and we're going to use the solid daisy image from the stamp set. We're gonna stamp our daisies in the same color as our die cut daisies. So we're gonna do them in copper clay. and I'm just gonna stamp a couple in the corner. We'll do the same on the envelope. And then we'll bring in some wild wheat for the center of the flower. Bring this piece back. And we'll set those two pieces aside. And then we're going to bring in some Mossy Meadow for our greeting. And we're going to stamp You Made My Day. All right, so that's all of our stamping. Now we can go ahead and finish assembling. I'm just going to take this over to my paper trimmer and trim it. I'll be right back. All right, so we'll bring this back and we're gonna angle cut this. So I'm just gonna trim, and this is going to sit over top of this. This is still a little wide. Let's just trim it a little thinner. So this is gonna sit right over top of this. So I am actually just going to use a little bit of seal. And we're going to pop it on there. The last thing that I want to do to the outside of my card is I am going to take the copper clay Stampin' Write marker. So our Stampin' Write markers changed a little bit with the release of the new catalog. The brush tip is pretty much the same. The caps I think are a little shorter. It's the fine tip that is very different. So the fine tip is a felt tip and it's a little thicker than our other ones. It works so much better. I found the other tips to be just a little bit finicky. So I am just kind of picking some random areas here where I'm adding like a little trio of dots. And I'm probably gonna pick 5 different areas. I'm trying to pick them so that they're a little bit different heights. And that just is a great way to add just a subtle little bit of detail without adding any kind of bulk to your project. Okay, so now we'll add our inside layer. So we've got those copper daisies carried over to the inside of our card. And there we go. There's our finished project with our matching envelope. And then I promised that I would share some additional samples using masking techniques or using the masks. So this one used that finer grid pattern or plaid pattern. And it also uses the, is it called Timeless Arrangements? Let me just check. Yeah, Timeless Arrangements bundle. So this and the coordinating dies, and look how pretty that is. I love, this is one of my favorite bundles from the new catalog. Love it. And then this was a card that my friend Kathy gave me using the Zoo Crew or Zany Zoo Crew, something like that. I can't remember what it's called. But she used the same background on here, but she kind of put it at an angle rather than straight on. And look what she did to the gingham ribbon. She colored it with her Stampin' Blends. So it's yellow and black instead of white and black. How fun is that? This is another sweet bundle. So there are 3 samples using the masks. Just, you know, it's just a single layer, just basic stenciling or masking. So there's so much you can do. It's perfect. They're perfect for just adding a little something to the background. So these are very, very subtle, like especially when you do tone on tone. It's just a subtle little addition to the background. And then when you do like a color on white, it pops a little bit more. And then here it's really light, but here it's a little bit darker. So you really have control over how you make it pop. All right. And then just a reminder that you can still sign up for the Cheerful Daisies class to go. I said that I would share 3 of the 6 cards that we'll be creating in class. And I will go back and edit the comments or the description so that you can, with a link to more information on the class. So this is one of the cards. This is one. This is a bit of a pocket card. And then this one here. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. And yeah, and you're looking forward to next week's where I'll share something a little bit different, still using the masks. And if you'd like to play along, just pull out some masks and I encourage you to give it a try, whether they're current masks or older masks. And if you don't have any, we've got a couple to choose from in the annual catalog that you can purchase. All right, thanks so much for watching. Take care and have a great weekend.